This boy went to take the adventurer exam. On the written test, he got everything wrong. Absolutely everything. The evaluators looked at the paper and laughed. Just another clueless country boy. On the practical test, they threw everyone into a forest. Archers, mercenaries, experienced warriors. Each one went after what they knew how to do. The boy came back dragging an entire red bear across the ground. Not the claw, not the bile sac, the whole animal, because he didn't know how to extract just the part he needed. The other candidates who were in the forest said they saw him draw his sword, and in an instant, the bear dropped. Nobody saw the strike. The room went silent. But even then, nobody took it seriously. Lucky country boy, they said. In the final stage, the evaluator proposed a fight. This unknown kid against two rankers at the same time. On one side, Eddie Markman, prodigy of the most famous archer family in the world, registered in the rankings since the age of 5. On the other, Owl Darkus, the mercenary who single-handedly dismantled an entire criminal organization, took down 7 executives and their boss with his bare hands. Both of them looked at the boy and felt insulted that they had to fight him together. The fight started. Eddie fired the first arrow. The boy dodged and charged at Owl at a speed the crowd could barely follow. The two exchanged blows, defended, attacked. Nobody in the room could clearly see what was happening. Then the boy opened Owl's guard. The finishing blow was coming. Eddie seized the moment and fired an arrow straight at the boy's body. He cut the arrow out of the air with his sword. Without stopping his movement, nobody breathed, and that's when everyone felt it. A dense, heavy aura, green in color, filling the entire room. The evaluator Luke, who had spent his whole life studying rankers and never got excited about any of them, looked at that scene and thought one thing only. This boy is a monster. But what nobody in that room knew was why he was there in the first place. In this world, ranking defines a person's status and fuels their desires. It's a place where power, connections, money, and work mean everything. This is where the journey of a boy from the village of Tori begins. Lo, a 16-year-old, is gathering firewood when a villager approaches to ask for his help. Suddenly a girl appears and throws the man to the ground, demanding that everyone stop asking Lo to do everything for them. This girl is Yuna, also 16 years old, who's always trying to protect Lo's peace and quiet. She explains that the others treat him like a doormat simply because he acts lazy, but in reality, he's just a kind boy, and that's his biggest problem. Then Yuna asks him to leave the village with her, mentioning a hidden path that no one knows about. However, an old woman interrupts them, reminding them that the village rules forbid anyone from leaving, and she starts to scold Yuna. Yuna's grandmother asks for her to be locked up for a while, since the girl was trying to run away. Soon after, another adult approaches and asks Lo to help him get water, and the boy accepts without a second thought. He and Yuna are the only ones the same age in the village, but they're completely different. Someone advises Lo to rest once in a while, since he also has his own desires, but even so the boy decides to keep his promise and help the man fetch water. Lo feels indebted to the villagers, because when his parents were gone, he was left all alone. Everyone treated him like family, taking great care of him so he wouldn't feel lonely. That's why he wants to pay them back and likes the people of the village so much. Moved, the adult starts to cry and asks if Lo wants to live at his house. But the boy refuses, stating that the villagers are the most important thing in his life and that the world outside doesn't matter that much to him. Meanwhile, Yuna is locked up, and her grandmother is scolding her for wanting to run away. The girl questions why they can't leave the village, since merchants come and go freely. She asks why they're trapped there if the world outside is so much bigger. The old woman replies that it's because they're outcasts, but she doesn't explain the reason why. She only says that one day, time will take care of everything. Elsewhere, while Lo is filling buckets with water, Yuna calls out to him. She managed to escape from her temporary prison, a task that has become easy for her after being caught so many times. She invites him to run away with her, but the boy is afraid that her grandmother will notice and get angry. Yuna insists, saying she wants to show her friend something important. The two of them leave through a hole in a fence and arrive in a forest. For the first time, Lo sees the real outside world and realizes that it's much bigger than his village. Yuna then asks if he knows the rules of the outside world. She reveals that, according to a book she secretly took from a merchant, the world out there has a system called ranking. There are adventurers, couriers, doctors, musicians, and various other professions, all with their own ranking. Anyone who makes the list is called a ranker. She goes on to explain that even weapons, food, strength, and wealth are ranked, which makes people constantly compete. Lo understands that the outside world also has its own rules. Yuna then reveals her greatest desire, to become a ranked adventurer and travel the world, competing with rivals to become a respected warrior. She says she's made up her mind about her destiny, but Lo insists that he can't leave the village. Yuna invites him to join her on this adventure, but the boy is confused by the request. To convince him, she reminds him of a day when they were 5 years old and a giant bird attacked her. It was Lo who saved her using only a wooden club. He doesn't seem to remember the incident very well, but Yuna assures him it really happened. On that day, she knew that even though he's absent-minded, when Lo really tries, he's stronger than anyone else around him. Yuna told him he would shine much brighter outside the village, and that's why she invited him to explore the world with her. However, Lo refused, insisting he loved his home too much. Since he refused, Yuna declared she would go alone, warning him that he could get stuck in the village forever. Looking back as an adult, Lo realized he'd never really considered that Yuna actually left that day. He stayed outside for a while, thinking about the rankings and everything she had said. When he finally decided to go back, he saw a floating island in the sky. Suddenly, the island shot out a powerful beam of light right in front of him, and then it vanished completely. Terrified, he ran back to his village, only to discover it had also been wiped off the map. Everyone he knew, including his grandmother and Yuna, had disappeared without a trace. At that moment, he remembered what Yuna and the other villagers always said. They would tell him he wasn't alone, hugging him and promising they would be a family forever. Overwhelmed by the loss, Lo collapsed to the ground and began to sob uncontrollably. That's when he heard the voice of a warrior, who was regretting that he'd arrived too late again. The man approached and asked if the boy was from Tori village, commenting that the situation must have been difficult. While helping him up, the warrior informed him that the island had already disappeared. Lo started bombarding him with questions, but the man cut him off. He handed Lo a piece of paper with a location written on it and told him to forget the village and go there. When Lo pressed him for more answers, the man shouted, stating that the entire village had disappeared and that he should forget the past. He warned that this was the only thing he could do, otherwise he would become just another victim. Those words, however, had the opposite effect. In that instant, Lo was certain he could become stronger than anyone. He remembered how, when he was little, he saw his parents die in a landslide and was left all alone. It was the villagers, especially Yuna, who took care of him. They were good people who never ignored someone who was hurt, and because of that, he couldn't just forget about them. Angrily, Lo declared that he would go to the flying island and bring everyone back, no matter what it took. Suddenly, Lo began to release an immense amount of energy, which left the man in shock. This energy is known as prana, the mental energy of living beings. It's a power that anyone can have, but few know about it, and only talented individuals can use it consciously. Normally, prana is colorless and invisible, but those who possess a large amount can make it visible, and it's said that some races have a special type of prana. The warrior realized this was the survivor from Babel he was supposed to protect, but he figured the kid would probably get out on his own in a few years anyway. Because of this, he threw his own sword to Lo and challenged him, saying that if he wanted to go to the island, he would have to prove his worth. The man promised that if Lo had potential, he would train him himself. He drew his sword and told the boy to attack him with the intent to kill. Lo charged forward, his green prana flaring, and swung his sword. Because he was a beginner, the attack was technically easy to defend. However, the man felt an immense pressure coming from the blow, as well as waves of prana that were simply absurd. Shocked by the boy's strength, the warrior said to himself that he was a monster. The protagonist's power was so great that the fight was already starting to leave marks on the ground. After the confrontation, the man explained that the island was called the Island of the Gods. Normally, it floats over the vast sea and rarely appears anywhere else. Its function is to erase entire peoples and lands, and he was trying to stop that from happening. He shared a theory that the humans caught in the light might have been taken to the Island of the Gods. Lo immediately wanted to know if he would have been taken too if he had touched the light. The man, however, stressed that it was just a theory. He said that maybe the villagers were alive, but there was no telling what was being done to them. To get there, he explained that there was a direct path, the adventurer rankings. Lo would need to be in the top 10 because those elite adventurers are the ones responsible for exploring and investigating unknown lands. Adal explained that out of all the rankings, the adventurer ranking has the most participants, and the top-ranked ones are absolute monsters. To get to the Island of the Gods, which is number 1 on the Dangerous Zones ranking, Lo would need to reach the top 10. The knight then asked if the boy really wanted to go, knowing that almost no adventurer ever comes back alive from there. Without hesitation, Lo said yes, so Adal decided he should start training immediately. The knight promised he would personally teach Lo everything about swords for 1 year. After that period, the boy would have to use that training as a foundation to climb the adventurer rankings on his own. Then, he formally introduced himself as Adal, the number 1 in the knight rankings. At that moment, Lo shook the hand of humanity's strongest warrior. Adal warned that he wouldn't go easy on him, since Lo was the first and only person who had managed to cut him, leaving a scar on his chest. The training that followed was brutal. Blisters on Lo's hands and feet burst, muscles tore, bones were crushed, and vital fluid dripped from every opening in his body. body. After that day, Adal never spoke about the island of the gods again, as if he wanted Lo to figure out the rest on his own. This attitude made Lo believe even more strongly that the people of Toki were still alive. He continued his training, clinging to this theory, always wondering about the reason for the village's disappearance. To find out the truth, he needed to reach the top of the adventurer rankings. 1 year later, after training relentlessly, he finally felt ready. Lo remembered what Yuna had said about wanting to become a ranked adventurer. Yuna, who dreamed of the outside world, was gone, and he never imagined he'd be the first to set out on a journey. Now he carried her dream with him. Lo grew a lot in that past year, becoming the disciple of humanity's strongest knight. At that moment, his adventure to the island of the gods began. The scene changes to the kingdom of Valter, in the capital city of Trakista. In a branch of the appraisal department, an assistant wakes up a boy named Luke, who was up all night checking the rankings again. She scolds him, saying that as an appraiser, he needs to take care of his own health. After all, unlike her, who just does office work, he's the one who determines people's rankings. Appraisers are sent to every corner of the world to analyze the skills of the rankers. They need to have extensive knowledge and impartial judgment to assess everyone's merit and position, which forces them to go through various tests. It's one of the most demanding jobs that exist, entrusted only to those who are hand-picked. Even though he's an appraiser, Luke is still at the lowest level and needs to work hard to climb the rankings and achieve his goals. He knows that for an appraiser, the fastest way to grow is to become the exclusive agent of a talented ranker. However, Luke still hasn't found a ranker he likes enough to dedicate himself to exclusively. He says he's not picky, but he thinks the current rankers are boring. In the past, the competition was more fierce, but now the top spots of all the rankings are locked in. As someone addicted to rankings, Luke believes their value lies in constant updates. That's why he wonders if there's a promising new star who can turn everything upside down. His assistant suggests that this promising ranker might be in the classroom they're observing.